All right, guys, let's see if we can get this rear carrier off without a problem. I think these are actually standard bolts. That's one of the weird things about the Predator is that the chassis has standard bolts. Oh, look at that, it came right out. And the engine has metric, which is really weird. I don't know why you did that, Polaris. It's a pretty nice anti-fade style nut. And it looks like it's going to be easy to work with. Bring this towards the carrier, and then it looks like it has one of the retaining rings under there. Pop the retaining ring off, and then this should slide right off. There we go. Come on, you little bastard. There we go. I don't think we're going to have any problems pulling the axle out. Now, I forgot to take this axle nut off. Usually I like to break these loose before I take the wheels off because you can get some leverage. Hopefully we'll be able to get it off with the impact. Everything else seems to be coming off okay on this thing, so I think we'll be all right. All right. Nice. It's a tight-ass hub. It's always a victory when the axle comes out no problem. Almost forgot to take the brake caliper off. If you're doing anything with standard sizes is almost like unorthodox for me. I'm so used to metric. All right, here's our swing arm. Everything came off pretty easily. It's a no-link rear. That's pretty nice. Could probably... The welds actually don't look too bad. Not gonna lie. I saw this little seam right here and I was like, oh, but it looks like it's just welded on the inside. So I'm gonna clean that up, clean the skid plate up. We'll clean the disc brake. The axle is over there. It's got grease and stuff all over it. So I'm gonna wash that off. I have the carrier and all of the carrier pieces over here. Carrier is actually in good shape. It's not like cracked or anything. So I'll clean these things up in the parts cleaner, and then we'll come back and we'll see how bad those bearings are. All right, guys, check it out. This stuff cleaned up pretty nicely. Honestly, man, the more I get into this quad, I'm not really seeing why people hate these things. So far, I don't see anything weird or like hard to work on. This is the OEM swing arm. This is a nice swing arm, dude. This is like usually what somebody would upgrade to. It's a steel swing arm. It's a no-link rear end. Uses a cam style carrier. All this stuff cleaned up really nice. I did spend a good amount of time cleaning it up, but I like to make my stuff nice and clean. I clean the inside here where the carrier goes. So this uses taper fit bearings, which is an upgrade also. These are, I believe these are actually stronger than traditional roller bearings, which is what you usually see in carriers. It doesn't utilize the sleeve in the center because taper fits require pressure on both ends, and that keeps them nice and centered. And I think these bearings are actually good. The ones that are in here, I didn't realize they were taper fits. So when they were wiggling around, that's just because the axle nut wasn't tight. But since we have the bearings, we got a new Tusk kit right here. We might as well put the new bearings in there. I also have swing arm bearings from All Balls. We'll just replace those. I'm pretty sure these are also decent as well. But like I said, we have everything apart. We're just going to switch it out. We've got the old chain slider here. This thing was wasted. Got a brand new OEM one right here. It's kind of like a weird material. It's like a softer rubber. If you guys can see, but it bends. Usually these are like a hard plastic. Brake components and stuff are over here. This brake rotor will be okay. It definitely could be replaced. The black spot there is where rust was. You can see a little bit of pitting, but the disc itself is not warped and it's pretty thick. It doesn't, once it gets a little bit of braking on there, most of that you probably won't even be able to see, but for now that'll be just fine. You know, we're really not looking to stop anyways. And the axle here, put the new sprocket on here. This is the 38 tooth, or 37 rather. The one that came off is a 37. You can see the teeth are worn. This thing's gonna go right into the scrap bin. The hubs are pretty cool. They're kind of like this gold color. Everything cleaned up really nice though. Axle's good to go. I believe it's straight. Won't really know until we actually ride it and get the RPMs up. Got a really nice swing arm skid here. Should be good to go, and it'll look pretty clean when it's back on there. All right, so let's take care of this carrier. You can see even the seals on here look pretty good. I imagine these bearings, they might even be somewhat fresh, but we'll go ahead and change them out. Just gonna use a flathead here. Wow, look at that, man. These things were really dirty with grease anyways. You wouldn't believe the amount of grease that came out of there. I don't know if you guys saw the bearing. See, it's a taper fit. And they pop in like that, and the sideways pressure. You can hear like grit and stuff in there. It's probably a good thing that we're replacing these. Clean this up real quick in the parts washer. All right, so now we got this all cleaned up. You can see the tapered outer race in there. You can see these things have been sitting for a while. Those little rust marks. So inside you can see these little open pockets. That's so that you can come through the other side with a punch and tap that outer race, because you can see these sit pretty much flush. You wouldn't be able to get in there if they didn't have these recessions. So I've got 2 blocks of wood set up here. Just gonna kind of set these boards up on the edge, and we'll tap that outer race right through. And what I'm gonna use here is this big chisel that I flatten the one edge. That should hook in the outer race, no problem. Go. So there's our carrier. Those things came out no problem. This carrier is in really nice shape. So what I'm going to do is put this in the oven at about 220 degrees. That will help this expand, and I have our outer races, the new ones, they are in the refrigerator. That will contract them, and it should be really easy to put those in. All right, now while that is in the oven, we're going to go ahead and pull the bearings out of our swing arm. Oh, shit. Damn. Whoops. Well, shit happens. Those bearings went in pretty easy. There's quite a few ways we could have done that. You can put them in the vise, press them in. We have a press over here. But sometimes I like to do things different ways. Once these come out of the freezer, they kind of just tap right in. Put our new chain slider in place. A little grease in here. Man, these are tight seals. Whew. Man, is that tight. Man, that's nice. That's what she said. All right, and we got our carrier fresh out of the oven, and we've got our inner races fresh out of the fridge. Now, this might just drop in place. Not sure what's going to happen. And they do make tools just for this, but I'm going to use the old bearing. Wow. It dropped right into place. All right, just make sure it's seated up in there. I think we're good. You can see those bearing races in there. Ooh, man, this thing's still hot. We got our taper bearings here. Put a good amount of grease on these. I'm putting a little bit of extra grease. Actually, a good amount back here for behind that seal. Pushed in nice and easy. Now there's also 2 O-rings that come with this kit. I believe they go on either side of the axle, but since we're not putting this stuff together until the motor's done, I'm just gonna leave these on the side. All right, so our swing arm, our carrier, Skid plate, all that stuff is good to go. I am going to replace the front hub bearings. There's just a slight amount of play in those. So I'm going to take care of both of those. I have my seals right here. The bearings are in the freezer. They are Boss bearing. Just a good thing. I want everything to be nice and tight on this thing. But you guys are probably tired of seeing bearings be done, so I'm going to do those off camera. But in the meantime, I want to clean up this front end. I did manage to get a brand new steering stem. Check this out. Well, brand new pre-owned steering stem. This is from PSN Power Sports. They are an ATV salvage yard. So if you guys are looking for any kind of Frankenstein parts, weird parts, things you can't get anymore, like for this Predator 500, PSN is definitely a good resource to have. They sent me some fresh shocks here. Now, the reason I wanted these actually look like they're in really good shape too, but the reason I wanted them is because in '07, for some reason, Polaris decided to downgrade to these non-reservoir shocks. From what I've read on forums and whatnot, these old school, well, I call them old school, but really they had these on the '06, and they might have even been on some of the '07s. But these Fox Podiums are supposed to be a nice upgrade compared to these. So I'm going to see if I can possibly have these things rebuilt. Either that, or I'll just put them on as is. Either way, we're going to switch these out. But first and foremost, let's take care of that steering stem. So I'm just going to start breaking down this front end. We'll get those LED lights off. I know you guys love those. And I'll probably take the fuel pump off and stuff because I'm planning on deleting that. See if we can get that steering stem out of there. And also want to address that bent frame. All right, first things first. Let's get these lights off of here. I know a lot of you guys were ripping these things up in the comments. But apparently, according to the previous owner, these things were very effective at where they're located. And I guess these are pretty bright. Maybe I will use these for some other application, probably not on this quad. Questionable wire job. Looks like he has it grounded to the frame, and the power line is just spliced right into the actual headlight wire. Oh man, these things, bro. These little wire splicers are the bane of the electronics industry. I hate those things. So we'll just delete that. You guys know me. I like making things look as OEM as possible. Even if I am going to do some sort of aftermarket choice, I like it to be, if you don't know what the quad looks like OEM, you might still think it's OEM. Also, while I'm up here, I'm going to get rid of this fuel pump because I do not plan to run the stock carburetor. I'm going to be using an FCR style 39mm carb. And from what I've read on online forums, this is not a fuel injected quad. You can do a gravity feed right from the fuel petcock. You don't need the fuel pump. While we're at it, we'll strip our handlebars. Start with this ugly ass clunky thumb throttle from Polaris. This thing looks like crap. Now I am aware that there's some sort of electronics that go into here. I can see the wire back here. I'm sure I can bypass that somehow to make the 450R thumb throttle work. But this thing just has to go, man. It feels cheap, it's huge and blocky. I hate this thing. Get this master cylinder off. All right, we'll take this off. Oh. Well, now see, here is something I can see why people get so annoyed with Polaris. Just like different fasteners everywhere. That side was Allen head. Now, granted, this stuff could have been replaced and switched, but I don't think so. Now this side is Torx. Like, why not just make it the same? Another weirdism. It doesn't look like you can take off this switch without removing the grip and sliding it off. It's not like other selector switches where usually, there's screws in the bottom and you can separate it. This one, you actually have to remove the grip and slide it off. Another kind of weird deal with that. Wow. Well, luckily these grips were barely held on here. On the back side, looks like they have a little plug here with a set screw, it looks like. Get our little instrument cluster off of here. Get these bars off. Polaris uses a through bolt design. Man, this thing is just getting better and better looking by the minute because it's just disappearing. More and more of it is just gone.
No, I'm just kidding, guys, but it kind of does look a little bit better without those lights and stuff like that on there. So I have it, torn down basically to the steering stem. I'm going to go ahead and pull that off camera. Basically just going to pop the tie rod ends off down the bottom. There's a nut underneath holding the entire stem in. And then, of course, we have the clamp up here. I'll pull that off and show you guys how bent it is. Ooh, yeah. So there it is. It is a little worse bent than I thought. And it's not just straight back. That's looking at it head on. You can see it's twisted to the side, and it's got a real nice belly in the back. I can't believe this fooled me. It's bent so bad. I can't believe I thought that this was straight.
You know what's crazy is I think the bars are actually straight.
Here's the good one from PSN Parts. That will be going in. And I did take a good deal of stuff off. I got the hubs off, got the tie rods off. The one tie rod was bent really bad. This is junk. They're aluminum tie rods. I probably would want steel, but we are replacing it with an OEM aluminum one. And, as I'm taking things off of this, I'm just finding more and more. It's like a mixture of really nice premium stuff and then a bunch of like, just why would you do that? So I'll show you. I can see why this bent back. You can see the belly in the middle here. If you come up here, you can really see it where it bent back here. And then, of course, the wrinkle in the steel right here. That's pushed back. This is going to be really easy to straighten out because it's so thin, but this is one of those things where just I don't understand why they would use such thin steel to make this. I would like to see some kind of like tubing up here. I think would be much stronger, especially because this is a portion of a quad it's not unlikely that you're going to roll an ATV. I feel like an ATV is kind of one of those things that should be built to be rolled, because it happens pretty frequently. Last thing you want is to have a bent frame. Definitely should be, if I was spending more time with this, I might actually chop this off and make this custom and make this much, much stronger. For now, I will just straighten this out and we'll gusset it, and that should make it stronger than OEM, but just why? And then here's one of the nice things they did is they put a grease zerk here so you can grease up your steering stem. Most places, I think that's the first time I've ever actually seen that. So it's like a good thing and a bad thing. Catastrophe has struck yet again, but what else is new, right? We'll take care of this. So before we even get into the catastrophe, I just want everybody to take note of this beautiful weld here. This is really just a masterpiece and just the overall condition of this beautiful, beautiful steering stem. This will be offered for sale once I'm done with the modifications. Will probably be $395. Now, what I just noticed now, and I guess I didn't notice this because this bag was clamped on here with all the hardware from PSN. So actually, let me get rid of that right now. Some of you Predator guys are probably yelling as I was showing the steering stem like, "Oh no, you got the wrong year." So you'll see the flag, or flags I guess you would call them, on this steering stem is different than the one that came off. So this kind of has like, the 07 has like the traditional flag style with the two holes for the two tie rods. And from 03 to 06, the Predator had this interesting linkage system that was supposed to reduce bump steer. I actually spoke with the designer. It's supposed to be a really good system. It's supposed to have almost zero bump steer, if it might even have zero with this system. The thing is, it was more expensive and a little bit more complex for Polaris to use that. So in 07, they switched it to the traditional style, which is kind of a catch-22. I kind of like this style just because it's what I'm used to. It's less parts. For me, it's a little bit easier to work on. However, supposedly this is actually a better system. So what I'm going to do is cut the steering stem right about here, cut the steering stem right about here, and we're going to weld on the flag in the lower portion onto this steering stem, and we're going to make it work just fine. Now, normally if I was going to cut and weld a post, like if I wanted to rebuild this, I would cut it, put a sleeve in it, and then weld it, and that would make it super, super strong. But since we're cutting it down low, most of the time when you have a bend in a steering stem, like back and forth pressure is going to be, I would say, in the upper half, specifically in this neck up here. If we were doing it up there, I'd definitely want it to be super reinforced, anything up here. But down here, I think the only way we're really going to have stress is going to be rotational. So if I chop this off, do a nice dovetail on both sides, and fill it with a really nice bead weld, I think we'll be good to go. All right, while this is drying, we'll go ahead and see if we can straighten our frame out. So I'm gonna see if I can set some kind of thing up here with a jack right here that we can press right here and get that bend out. All right, guys, check it out. So I have this board that I have ratchet strapped to the frame, so that won't move anywhere. I cut a small angle in it. This jack fits on that flat spot perfectly, and we should be able to press out that little belly. Let's give it a shot. It's right about there is lined up. I did take this grease zerk out because that would have, the back was sticking through. I didn't want to destroy that. All right, now we have it nice and straight. Got both of those wrinkles out. They look perfect. And the whole piece is straight. Right now, I'm pretty sure that's exactly how it's supposed to be. Before I take the pressure off of this jack, I'm gonna sand this down right here and just put a gusset on both sides. Just a nice piece of steel. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. This is just such thin sheet metal. Anything is gonna help that. Just to keep this, because that's what happened. You saw that wrinkled from being pushed back. If this is reinforced, it'll be less likely to bend. I'd like to do more than that, but without like chopping this off and re-engineering it, it's gonna be tough. So this will at least strengthen it a little bit. All right, guys, now that she's cooled down here a bit, let's go ahead and pull our jack out and see if this stays nice and straight. Looks like we're gonna be good. The pressure is off the jack, but it looks nice and straight to me. All right, guys, there she is. Threw a quick coat of satin black on there with primer, just so we don't get any rust or anything. Doesn't have to be beautiful, but we should be pretty good to go. Let's get that steering stem in there. First thing I'm gonna do is put our lower steering stem bearing in. This is actually a pretty nice setup by Polaris. You can see the bearing here. This is a brand new OEM bearing. The other one did have a little bit of play in it. And you can see the outside has a bit of a belly on it. And that will sit in here like so. And then there's a plate that goes on top. And then there are 2 bolts and nuts that go on the bottom. Now I'm not gonna tighten these bolts down just yet because this bearing can set in different locations. So once I put the stem in there and everything's nice and straight, then I'll bolt these down. Now from the back, we have 2 plastic bushings for the upper mount. We don't even have to worry about greasing these right now because there's a grease zerk from Polaris. That's one of the nice things that they have. So we'll be able to grease that after the fact. Then we'll come around the front, tighten these up. And now that the upper mount is in, we can go ahead and tighten down this bearing. And then we'll just go ahead and put on our steering stem washer and nut and also a cotter pin. Now we can hit this thing with a little bit of grease. And we've got a super smooth and tight steering stem. So we're getting a lot of stuff done that I didn't even realize needed to be done to this thing. I wasn't expecting to have a bent frame and stuff like that. But since we're waiting for those motor parts, it's kind of working out, getting this stuff done. So I think we're at a good stopping point for this video. I'm gonna go ahead and do those hubs. on my own, and by the time you see this thing, those things will be all done. In the next video, we'll be adding some bling to this thing. We'll probably do the front bumper, the rear grab bar. We're gonna update all the controls. I got some sick bars for this thing, some new controls and stuff, new grips. We're gonna get this thing looking and feeling really good. I'm really big on making a bike feel really good. I think the bars and controls are super important. I also wanna get rid of this ugly ass tab. I kinda wanted to do that today and I forgot. And just some other odds and ends. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Remember to give it that thumbs up if you're enjoying this content. Definitely hit that subscribe button and remember to hit the notification bell. A lot of you are not subscribed, like the large majority, like 70% of you. So definitely hit that subscribe button. I promise nothing bad's gonna happen. It just helps me out a lot. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.